Everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are keeping safe and well and enjoying your Cinema 4D journey. Okay, so off the back of my last tutorial, as promised, now we're going to start getting into looking at some of the nurbs, a very powerful feature of Cinema 4D. So if we just click and drag him out the control panel, so we've got that there. Excuse me, to play with. I'll probably do an entire section about hypernurbs. We can run over it very, very quickly now. An incredibly powerful feature of Cinema 4D. You add a subdivision surface, previously called hypernurbs. Add a cube, you put the cube in, and you can see that the subdivision surface is doing its utmost to smooth the contents. Okay, so what I'll do is add some subdivision to the cube because it's still an editable parametric object. Turn the subdivision surface off. Keyboard shortcut for that is Q, which is quite handy. So we've got just a plain square-sided box with no rounding, but when we switch on the subdivision surface, it gives you nice rounding. Now, as I say, I'll do a whole section about the hypernurbs because it's such an important part of Cinema 4D and the modelling process. But if we were to press C to make editable on the cube, with the cube selected and then chose polygon tool, you can see that the polygons, selectable polygons, highlight as I hover over them. If I select one and pull it out, you can see it gives you a good idea of what hypernurbs is doing. So again, Q, that's the underlying structure. This is it with the hypernurbs switched on, and you can see my rounded, the original polygon that I've got selected, but you can see the hypernurbs is adding lovely smoothing. So again, difficult to see at this stage, but once we get into more polygon modeling, the power of the subdivision surface will become greatly apparent. If we add a platonic, like we discussed in part 2, pop that in the subdivision surface, pop, it makes a ball. Okay, because again, if we just release that, C to release, and then click on the object, you can see Cinema 4D is doing its utmost to apply as much smoothing as possible. Again, as I say, I'll do a section dedicated specifically to hypernurbs. What I will say is, if you're modelling fairly basic parametric items, and then you feel that you've already released it, it's no longer parametric, you can't add more subdivision. If you want some smoothing and some additional subdivision with additional subdivision control, popping it in a subdivision surface can be a very good solution. Okay, so extrude. We'll get this panel out as well. Just pop this here so we can use this to grab various basic splines. Everything on the right, these are you know, a bit like the parametric objects. Excuse my dog. In that, you can click on an object and it will immediately add you a basic star. And you can control the number of points, the inner and outer radius, the angle, the X, Y, Z plane, etc., etc., and control the number of points. Anyway, we're not going to talk massively about all these. This is very similar to the parametric objects, except none of them have polys. They're just based on splines. Arc is an arc, a star is a star, cogwheel is a cogwheel, etc., etc. And again, I would encourage everybody to play with all of them just to get a feel for them. And the ones on the left are, as they say, pen tool, a bit like the Illustrator pen tool, sketch, more of a sketchy tool, and then spline smoothing and a spline arc tool. I don't use these two so much, but I'm happy to go through them in due course. Anyway, so we're talking about nurbs. We're going to go into the extrude nurbs. So if you, just to get this the right way around, okay, so if you hold Option, you've got your star selected or your spline, you hold the Option key, click Extrude, and it will automatically put the spline in the extrude object. It's not critical. You could have just clicked that and then put this in here, but that's 2 clicks, and holding Option and clicking is just 1 click. Excuse my dog. Right, sorry about that. My attack dachshund was felt the need to try and kill the postman. Anyway, probably too much information. So I was just discussing the speed of holding Option and clicking your extrude nurbs. It works with subdivision, surface, lathe nurbs, sweep nurbs, loft nurbs, etc., etc. Where it will providing you've got your spline activated, when you hold Option and click on the nurb that you need, it will automatically put the spline inside the nurb, and I will discuss other keyboard shortcuts like that in due course. So the extrude function, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It comes in with a default extrusion of 20. That will be in millimeters or centimeters or meters, depending upon the units you've got your software set up to be using. And as you'd imagine, you can control the depth of the extrusion. You can make crazy wonky extrusions. If we look at that from above, so we can see what's happening. This is the top view. So you can see as we adjust the extrusion on that parameter, what's happening. But as you'd imagine, one of the most powerful functions for this is adding 3D text. So if you hit text, again, there are more than one ways to get text. We'll go through that in due course. Hold Option, click Extrude, immediately you get 3-dimensional text. A classic 3D training first 3D object type method to learn. I think when studying computers in the early 90s, when we had very, very limited options, even things like 3D text, a bit like old Windows 95 screensavers with 3D bouncing text, would be quite satisfying. So that's a good use of the extrude function. So let's put something back, a bit more basic back in there. Just a circle, pop them in. So, and we have that. So let's look at the additional functionality. Nothing else we really need to discuss. It has caps, a bit like the standard parametric objects we were discussing in part 1 and part 2. So that is your extrude nurbs. So lathe nurbs. This is the one I personally use the most. I do a lot of packaging visualization. I'm going to freestyle this in a right view. So let's imagine that we were drawing a, let's say we were drawing a can of Pepsi or Coke, and you have to imagine you were looking at it from the side. Now, I am be the first to admit I may have done this more times than I care to discuss. It's not that I have a, I don't have a inbuilt memory to what a Coke can profile looks like. Anyway, so when you press, you've done your last click, which was this point here, but you can see you've still got your handle. Just press escape and that will release you from that. Now, that looks pretty much like a Coke can profile. I'm just going to do one amend because I'm so fussy, and that is I'm going to make it a little bit narrower because it needs to be half. You will see why in a moment. And that was just the Bezier tool, point tool that I used momentarily, and selected that point, and then you can shift them together so that you know they're constrained, and then click back to the object tool, move him back to world 0, which is here, and this is the magic of the Lathe NURBS tool. Okay, so let's just move you in a bit. As you can see, why I was concerned that it was a bit too fat. Let's just adjust that because that will bother me. So we need to drop our points back even further. Just put them here, and then pop you there. That looks more like a... Obviously, if you're doing this for photorealism, you would bring in go on Google Images and find a reference image. But hopefully you can see with the Lathe tool, when you're making symmetrical objects, the Lathe tool is so powerful. I use it all the time for a multitude of different things. So if you can visualize the profile of something, then you can use the Lathe tool to help you build that. So I'm just rapidly building myself a very quick environment, a massive sphere that we're going to go inside, a plane, some textures, just so you can see how quickly you can utilize the Lathe NURBS tool to build fairly complex objects. So I've been having some trouble with my machine today, speed-wise. Anyway, so with the Lathe tool, you obviously have caps. I'm not doing that. I don't need caps. I've built all the detail into my object. You have subdivision control. For photorealistic can, you really want 100, and that's your lot. Then you're done, and you could build yourself a nice metallic material. I don't want to digress too much onto this because I could start waffling about product visualization. So we've added a material color like a grey, add some reflection, pop that material on. I made a mistake there. We all make mistakes. Are we shiny? Yes. Obviously, it's not going to appear massively shiny in the editor because there's nothing else in the scene to reflect onto it. So by that I mean if you had a tower next to it, whatever size you want, with a material bright red, and then you just went pop like that, brought it forward a little bit, then press render, bring forward some more. My apologies. Come on, machine. Still on him. I'm just going to do that from above so that I can see precisely where I'm positioning my tower. Here we go. There. Tower in front. If it doesn't reflect upon it now, you can start to see it. So what we'll do is turn up the reflectance in the reflectance channel. All a bit dark. And just have a light. Here we are. Now it becomes blatantly apparent. So the because there's no light in the scene, it was very hard to, no matter how reflective the can material was, it was very hard to send back any light information because there's no light in the scene at all. Anyway, so now you can see what's happening. Shiny metallic can, bright red tower, the reflection on the can is turned up very high, 70%. We'll turn that down to 50. So you're seeing a reflection of everything else in the 3D editor in the can material. Okay, so that is lathe nurbs. Again, I can't emphasize enough how valuable that can be. And I will do a part 2 for loft nurbs, sweep nurbs, and Bezier nurbs. Okay, thanks everyone. Hope you're keeping up okay. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.